Welcome back to another amazing edition. Again. But I guess it's only purposely, effectively done when it's supposed to be done. This is episode 55. What now? It's the season finale of Hell, I Don't Know. Perfectly titled What Now? And this is going to be a change up for me because my guest is going to be the one doing the interviewing for me because we've tried to do this 3 times now. And I'm going to let her take over because we've had complications and it's not something that we can control. And she's been trying to do this for a while. So I'm going to introduce you all to, let me do what I usually do. I'm going to introduce you to an amazing host in her own. She hosts the Unlearning This podcast. If you haven't listened to it, make sure you listen to it. She's done an amazing job in her first season and she's moving on to do amazing and great things. And with the complications in the first season, you learn how to do things better in your second, third, and fourth seasons. I introduce you all to Miss Christina Jones. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
Hello, all of Mr. Teddy's listeners and viewers.
And hello to all of Mrs. Christina Jones's listeners and viewers.
I have more people listening now overseas. So now I've picked up people in Great Britain, Germany, Canada, Yemen, and Bangladesh.
Oh, you got Yemen. Yeah, man.
So I'm like, whoa, okay. I mean, I don't know. Someone asked me before, is like, do you think it's like military bases? I'm like, I don't know. As long as they listening, I'm just gonna receive it. Whatever. Yeah.
I picked up India and Indonesia, and it's a 1%. I'm like, that's cool with me.
I'll take it.
That's cool with me. So that's I don't care. As long as I pick up somebody, that means somebody listen. I don't care if you listen once, keep coming back.
There you go.
So keep coming back. Before you get started on me.
Okay, I was about to say, like, what you mean throwing it on me?
Yeah, before you get started on me, I wanted, because this is your first time on my show. I've been on your show. This is your first time on my show.
Yes.
Introduce yourself to those who don't know you, because this is your first time on my show. And I think I had you at the right time because we both get to talk about the ups and downs of what we've been through in our seasons. I've already been through, finna be my 3rd season, and you are catching up to me. This is episode 55, and I've already planned out to episode 200.
Wow.
Yeah, so the good thing about what I did, and I know you pick up a lot of notes from me, is this season I found shows that I can carry on to the next few seasons. So I found concrete episodes. And I saw that you're starting that with the season you're doing now. You start off with a show that's going to take you to 4 episodes. So I did that with this season when I did my Grace and Mercy. So I did 3 episodes. Now I'm able to carry on over to my next season 4, season 5, season 6, and just do Grace and Mercy, Betrayal. And then season 6, it'd be Grace and Mercy, Friendship. And then season 7, Grace and Mercy. Now I can do 1 season.
Yeah.
That started with me doing, I think, the Be My Valentine episode. And so I wanted to be able to do that every year. And this time I didn't get a chance to do it in February. I did it last month, except I called it 22 questions. So I changed it to doing 22 questions because I already got the foundation.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's important to have those concrete episodes that people can be like, oh man, I can't wait to do Grace and Mercy this year. Or I can't wait till he do Be My Valentine because he brings something different to it. And with my new season coming up, and I guess I can go ahead and tell everybody, I'm going to start talking about grief. So I'm going to do, I have a plan to do 4 episodes, but as I started to plan it out, I'm like, let me just do two episodes this season to get a concrete base. And then inside those 2 episodes, I can talk about 4 stages. And then that gives me season 3, season 4, season 5, season 6, to where they can come back and get those, because then I get more questions.
Yeah.
Have you found that you start to get concrete episodes that you like, you know what, let me build on this for my next season? Because
Yeah.
this is your second season, right?
This is my second, and I'm going into, so I'm already recording the third, which is going to be called Miss Edunation. Um, and it's
Already starting to grow.
yeah.
You're already starting to
So
grow.
I'm the type of person, type of learner that I just like to get my hands dirty and figure out what the system is before I start to like take it, break it, and make it my own. So that first season was just me building up the courage and confidence to reach out to people like you and like interview people and just see what a process could be. And as that was happening and I was listening to other people share things, I was like, okay, what's going to work for me? And so from there, like you said, and you told me this in the beginning, like trust your process and do the things that you want to do. Things just started dropping in my spirit. And so the one about Money Matters, which is out now, that happened from one interview. So that was supposed to be one interview, but again, you know what's going on with all the he say, she say, and the red pill, and men and women pointing their fingers at each other. I just thought, well, since we're talking about money, and that seems to be the point of contention when people are talking about relationships and dating, I was like, well, let's look at it through a lens of like finances. And so, um, just kind of as I did that series, then it was like, oh, here's another something. And so I, to your point, have about 7 in my mind that I want to do. I haven't started them yet, but I'm like thinking the way that you are, that we could build this thing out and always add to it, the body of work, as I like to call it.
And see, that's how I've been wanting to do grief for a while, because
Mm,
it's when I first started, almost 6 years ago, because I used to teach a class on grief. No, on my military class, I teach a class on grief, and so I done research to make it different for all of my peers, and so I came up with these different stages of grief, and so I still have them to this day. And even when I went through another class, I'd send that information out to different people, and so I'm like, man, this that's one of these days I'm gonna do a podcast. And so now
yeah.
that I have that, uh, first season was like 13 episodes. And so now that I got the 13 episodes out of the way, I was like, okay, let me do this as episodes instead of saying season one, season two. So it's
Yeah.
episodes that's easier to keep up with. And I don't have to worry about putting season one, season two. I can say, back in episode 31, I,
Yeah.
I, I tied this into this. I've been talking about this for this long, been talking about that for that long. As I got to looking into grief, we're used to thinking about 5 stages of grief. But I got to digging into it, and then it's like I came up with 12 stages, and I'm like, man, this can be
Mm,
multiple seasons, and then I can start off talking about it. I can have different people on to talk about it. So people go through it all the time. As people go through different stages, which brings me back to when you first started your podcast. It has nothing to do with grief, but actually it does, because it's a depressing thing when you're starting this thing that you want to do, and then everybody's like, "Oh, do this, do this, do this."
yeah.
But then you have that one person that comes along with bragging on myself, which is me, and
Oh, it
I
was
look
you. It was you.
I look at it from a different perspective, and I'm like, do what's comfortable for you. I said, because
Yeah.
everybody's talking to you from where they're at, not from where you at, and that's what people do a lot. They talk to you from where they're at. A millionaire talks to you from where he's at or where she's at, not from where they started at. They forget the struggle,
Yeah.
and that's where people seem to unlearn what they learned. See the cheap
Yeah.
plug?
I'm
And
not mad at it.
yeah, I, and
um,
that's one of the things that I told you that stuck from the get go. And I say, hey, if you ever need something, just let me know.
yeah.
And from that podcast group on Facebook, by the way, I tell people all the time, I said, if you do what's best for you. If doing it one day is good enough for you, do what's best for you. And with my podcast, I don't follow the norms at all. I mean,
Yeah.
if I want to do a history podcast, I'm gonna do a history podcast. If I want to do like Tina Turner just died
Yeah.
last month, and I wasn't able to do it because I had something in front of her, and I called one of my buddies that I've done on the show, and I said, "Hey, dude, you want to do this dedication episode with me about Tina Turner?" I said, "Just going to be straight talking about. I don't want to talk about none of the bad stuff." I said, "They can watch that in the movie." I
Yeah.
said, "But let's talk about how she impacted us."
Yeah.
And he was like, man, yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, let's do that. and that was episode 54. And so, as you know, I just had back surgery. So for all of you that don't know, this is my first episode back from back surgery. I'm doing pretty good, by the way. And so I recorded all those episodes before I had back surgery, but the Tina Turner episode was in the middle. I was able to lay up because it was audio. So I laid up and did it. But it's soothing to have the podcast world to be able to do audio or visual and still be able to reach out to the rest of the world, especially when you're going through something like that. Because I was in a depressed stage, and my brother was here for a first week. And this is my first time talking about this. This is why grief is so important, because a person with a strong mind such as mine, I was still in that stage like, man, it's lonely in this room. And it's I feel like I'm by myself, but I still have people reaching out. But at the same time, I'm like, man, my brother's gone now. It's just me. It's what am I supposed to do? And then I have people reaching out saying, are you okay? You know, because people go through depressed stages. I said, no, I'm good. And at the same time, I'm still thinking like, man, I'm going through a depressed stage right now. I'm in the grief process. And because I was scared before I had that back surgery, I was freaking out. And because the one thing they say about back surgery, don't ever get your back cut on.
Got that. Yep.
And my parents weren't able to be here. They've been through me with every surgery and sitting there on the gurney, sitting there before I'm getting ready to go into surgery. My brother's sitting outside, and like I said, this is the first time I've told the story. So it's just me sitting there, and I got my phone, TikTok. I'm doing TikToks. I'm recording. I'm doing dialogue. I'm sending pictures to my niece. I'm sending videos to my niece because she's going to put it all together through my process of that. And I just started recording these prayers, and then I just prayed for everybody that's in the operating room, because that's what my dad always done. And after I got through with that prayer, I sat there and cried because I was so afraid, because my parents aren't there while I'm getting ready to have surgery. And so it's that moment that I'm getting ready to seep into depression that my prayers and my background helped me. And it's the title of my podcast that I'm like, hell, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. Hell, I don't know. And that's what I'm thinking about. I'm like, man, I'm going to be able to help someone through this process. Next thing I know, I'm up there laughing with the doctors. They put a breathing tube down my throat, which last time we tried to do this, my voice was raspy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was telling them, I said, yeah, put some steak. Make sure you put some steak in that feeding tube. They said, huh? And they said, do you got any middle plates? I said, no, I took my plate out before I got here. She said, what? I said, I'm just joking with you. And they took me back there, and they said, so we're going to put this oxygen thing on your face. Next thing I woke up in the recovery room. They said, you okay? I said, yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I said, y'all put that steak in there? And the next thing I remember, they was rolling me out, and I was telling everybody, you did an awesome job. You're fabulous. You're amazing. You're a wonderful person. You're going to have a blessed day. You did a good job. I told everybody walking out that, as I was being rolled out that door, something to pep their day up, because I know that somebody's circumstances is worse than what I was going through.
Yeah.
And because I also knew that once I woke up, I was on the other side of the fear, which is the storm that we go through. Because if I would have stopped, I would have been stuck.
Yeah.
And that's the storm, because if you stop in the middle of the storm, it's going to always be raining. Even when your umbrella tear up, you got to keep going. So what if you get wet? You're going to be dry if you get on the other side.
Yeah.
So now I'm still not out of the woods, but I'm on the other side.
Oh, yeah.
Because what now? I keep going. A lot of times in our life, we say, what now? And what now is not answered by you. Sometimes it's answered by other people. And you just have to. I needed to get that out because I've been holding it in until we talked.
Yeah.
Because when people hear this, I wanted to be able to help someone that's in the same situation, that's in those moments where they think no one's there, but there's always someone there. And and they're just on the other side. And when you say, hey, what now? Just think about, you keep going because you've made it that far.
Yeah.
Which brings me to the podcast world. We've made it this far. The title is apropos because a lot of the podcast. We're not the big podcast right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's where we're going, and we're taking the small steps to get there.
Yeah.
And I want people to know, and this is just from my basis, and I think I speak for me and Christina also. It's this is we take whoever listens to us, and that's my foundation. I take whoever listens to us.
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm not the big podcast, but I'm getting there. I'm getting there. That's where
Um,
we're going.
as I like to say, small and mighty. Like
Yeah.
there, it's a lot that you just unpack that I want to unpack. But so you tell me. But um, when I was little, I was always fascinated with the You remember the fable about the sun and the wind and the little boy, and if you don't know, it was the sun and the wind, and they were talking about who was the mightiest or something like that. And there's this little boy passing with a coat, and the little boy, they both, the wind and the sun, say, well, I bet you I can take the coat off. That was kind of the bet, whoever could take the coat off. And the sun, the wind comes out, and the wind blows harder, and it's going fast, and it makes the young man cling on to his coat more. And then the sun comes out and just gently warms everything. Eventually, the boy gets too hot and he takes the coat off. And so for me, it's being small and mighty and doing things in a meaningful way. Um, when I first, like, to talk about what you said before I met you, like, and the thing that you told me, like, you do it your way, was very freeing, because it was so many people trying to put on this role like they were bigger than that I met, that for real, my vibe, it just vexed my spirit, because it was like what I heard through them was lack and fear, just like you were talking about, like the fear of, I gotta hustle. My mindset is kings and queens don't hustle. What's yours to have is yours to get, and God will bring it to you. You
Yep.
just have to be good and a faithful servant and do, like you said, what's next. Sometimes that's God sending people your way. Sometimes that's you just sitting still. And that's what I've learned. And it wasn't until you came to me and told me, like, this your podcast, you do it how you want to do it. But I had to wait for the what next. And then I was able to figure out things, and things got revealed. Because I don't believe knowledge gets, yeah, you learn things. So my background's education, y'all. Because you did ask me what my background was. So my background's education. Yes, you can acquire knowledge, but true knowledge is a revelation that's revealed to you in the right time, through the right people, in the right circumstance. So you got to know the difference between, I think, between when you go and collect knowledge versus when you get a revelation, because revelation is something that's deeper. Everybody don't get revelation on things. We can all get knowledge, but we don't get revelation. Um, and so when you came at the right time, it was like, okay, I was in a place. You just talk about so much, because I can also talk to you about grief in the body, and my journey with trying to release grief in my body right now. But that's for your other podcast episode. But so grief is, it's
The
a lot.
setup. This is the setup.
Yeah, it's just my journey of what I was going through. And at the time, like I said, when things get revealed, like, you came at the perfect time, because I was at a place where I had dealt with some things in my life. And for those of you who don't know, like, the reason I started my podcast was because I was going through my own journey of just being in a dark, depressive state. And then I came into another environment that just added to that. And so I was trying to heal emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And God spoke to me one day and just said that in order for you to move forward, like, you can't keep building on things that are shaky. You got to let go. And so I had to unlearn things and make a conscious choice to start embracing new ways of thinking and new ways of being. And so when you came, I was going through all of that trauma. You came at the right time, which gave my spirit like a, whew, okay, I can be okay in this. I can do this and move forward and do it in a way that is me. And then it led me on another series of questions of, like, well, who am I? Because I had to get back to that. Like, who is the person that you're talking to right now? So, yeah.
So when did you discover that the whole time the name of your podcast was Unlearning was something you had to go through before you actually called it Unlearning this? Because
Well, it's
that,
actually called the Unlearning Podcast. It's not called Unlearning. This is my email.
yeah.
Unlearn.
So
This is my email. But um, so my background is education, and so before I about a year ago, I had. Well, let me go back because I always have to share the story, and I don't really like talking about myself. I'm kind of the person like just watch. Um, but I had taught for, I stopped counting after 15 years, but it's like 21 years I've taught. But I've been an instructional leader. I've been leaders in districts and in charter schools. And so I was in Louisiana, where I'm from, and I was at a charter school. I was a director of curriculum and instruction. And I just joked with the principal that I was going to retire and I could retire there. Like, I didn't want to be anybody's principal. I liked being an instructional coach in the director role. And then all of a sudden, I got this urge to want to come to the mountains. Like you and I are sitting here, I shot up in my office and I said, I want to go to the mountains. And my colleagues at the time were like, you do realize we're in New Orleans. There ain't no mountains around here. We got swamps. And so was sitting, I just still had this urge to want to come to the mountains. So then something said, just go on Indeed. And a position open for the manager of curriculum and instruction for the arts and PE department within Denver Public Schools. So over 90,000 kids, over 500 plus teachers in arts. And that included music, which is my background, music, theater, dance, visual arts, PE, adapted PE, comprehensive health, sex health, adapted sex health. And so I got the job. I came here thinking, oh, this is another blow up. And it was like a door. I felt this like spiritual door was slammed. And God said, now you're here. Now you can't run anymore. Now what are you going to do? And so it was 5 years of me letting go from trauma and abuse in my marriage and being homeless and things like that. And meeting people that kind of re-triggered that trauma, but in a place of me trying to heal. And so throughout that process, and then in my work, we're talking about things we need to reimagine education and blah, blah, blah. It was like, but in order for us to reimagine, we got to unlearn what's not working. And so then again, that revelation, God started revealing to me, oh, there's an unlearning that needs to happen. And I just kept going with that until I got laid off a year ago. And it was like, well, you could start this podcast, which God had told me 5 years ago that I was going to start. He was going to use my voice to speak to the nations. And I was so broken that I laughed and said, yeah, whatever. I laughed. And it's like, who's laughing now? So, yeah. So it was an unfolding over time, but the seed was dropped of what is unlearning and kind of going through my own personal experience. That's why I believe that unlearning is a personal journey. That's why I interview people about their stories.
you do a good job at it. You get better and better each time you talk to someone, because each time you talk to someone, the pieces that you need to answer the questions you have are inside of someone else's story.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to be patient and listen to their story while also listening to the answers that you need.
Yeah. And I'm sorry. To your point,
I got stuff to say all the time.
I know. I'm honoring, I'm your guest, and I don't over talk a lot of things, because again, it's like it's a space for other voices to come forward, and we keep looking for what's shiny and what we think has substance, but it's the sizzle, not the steak. And that's the problem, is that people want to just listen to what's going to make you feel good and not get you to think. And I think you and I both, as educators and natural teachers, it's like, no, if you can think, my job isn't to tell you what it is. My job is to present it to you, and then you're supposed to think. So if anything, teachers and educators are supposed to teach you how to think for yourself. That's it. And I was doing that with 5-year-olds when I was teaching kindergarten. My job is not to tell you yes, 1+1 is 2, but if I just keep telling you 1+1 is 2, you won't know how to think about making 1+1 is 2 and applying it to other contexts. That's true learning. And I think you and I both are lovers of learning, which is why we're good teachers. We're masterful teachers.
I tell people, because I deal with adults. That's the worst sometimes.
Yeah.
I tell adults, I said, children have to be told what to learn, what to do. Adults don't need to be told. I said,
Yeah.
so that's the difference between the two, because the adults know what to do. I said,
Yeah.
so uh, my job is not to tell you the answer. My job is to re-engage your thinking process for your own.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found out is people are more afraid to think more than they are afraid to just say, hey, won't you just tell me the answer?
Yeah.
And the thought of using this for my own self is more fearsome than it is saying, well, Miss Christina, why can't you just give me the answer? What is the answer to 1+1 = 2? I mean, someone said 3. No, it's 2, because you're taking that 1 and that's making 2. You're not adding the equation symbol in the middle to make
Right.
it. So you're making it harder than it is.
I teach graduate school to teachers, and like they say, teachers and doctors, we all know we're the worst when it comes to doing that, because education is empowerment. Once you can teach somebody how to think, you are teaching them how to fish. So I tell my daughter this all the time. I don't care about your grades, because I know grades is subjective. I can go up there and complain to your principal or your teacher, and they're gonna change it out of fear. I care about what you learned. So if I know how you learn and I can see how you think, then I can understand you. And that's what matters, because you can apply it to different contexts. But in our society, we get told so much, and then our attention spans are constantly doing this and shrinking to the point where to think is kind of like going into like the Amazon. It's like you don't know what's in there. Like if you keep thinking and unpacking your own thinking, it's like scary. It's like the boogeyman, which is crazy to me. But um people are so, I think, also stressed out and distracted that they don't have the time to think. That's why it's easy for, I had adults in the teaching program get upset in emails like, please tell me the answer. And I'm like, I'm not doing it. If I tell it to you, how are you going to help a child to know that it's okay for them to think and think different?
And that's what I tell most of my students. I said, because I want them to remember what it's like to be human. I said, and I tell them, I said, if you never dealt with a lot of your issues, because when the student come through the door, they're going to be dealing with a lot of issues. They're going to be dealing with whatever's going on at home. The child's going to be sick. The bill's going to be late. The car is going to be about to get repoed. I said,
Right.
I've dealt with that. I said, with there's going to be the division in the house. I said, you're about to get divorced. You're about to get married. I said, your mom's sick. Your dad's sick. Your brother's sick. I said, you don't know how to deal with this and you're deployed. I said, you don't know how to deal with this and you're about to come back home. You just got sick. I said, they're dealing with all of that. But if
Yeah.
you never fixed it for yourself and dealt with it for yourself and fixed your own issues, how can you tell them how to fix it?
Right.
You're just going to look at them and be like, hey, go take care of that yourself. And you just also have had some suicide awareness training. I said, and I break it down on that. Basically, you just told a person to go kill himself. I'm just being honest with you, because that person was looking for a lifeline and you cut it because they thought they could come talk to you, but you only gave them what somebody gave you.
Yeah. So on the podcast right now is my labor of love. It's artwork. But I also have a consulting business called Humane in the Membrane. And what we do is, especially for adults, is try to help organizations understand how adults need to learn, and like in learning in a joyful way, because we ultimately a lot of times tell adults do this and we give them no experience, then we tell them to apply it to someone else. And until people have that type of experience to know what it looks like, sounds like, feels like, they're never going to be able to give that to someone else, because then they won't understand. It's almost like building empathy by stepping into another world of how somebody needs something. And so for you to just be telling, a lot of times in organizations, we tell adults to do a thing, but we don't let them experience it. It denies them of who they are, in my opinion, and it doesn't create a joyous space. How many trainings have you been to that you just been like, oh my gosh, I can't do this again. I'm gonna beat my head through a wall.
Well, I'm a different beast. So, so I find the positivity inside of each training, because with me, and I know people gonna be like, he just think he all this. No, it's just who I am. Because if I'm at that training, then I'm probably picking the training up, but I'm probably also knowing that I'm not there to beat my head against the wall as much as I am to stop someone else from doing it, to understand the
Mm,
training. So I'm that person and be like, hey, it's what's going on. So I'm probably there to talk to someone else to make them ease through the training, which means I'm getting my lesson at the same time too.
yeah, that's
But
wisdom.
yeah, but I have been through trainings like, man, this is stupid.
I've had somewhere I just straight up walked out. I'm like, I'm not doing this. And I know as educators, we get them a lot. You get a tolding of doing a thing, and then, for example, in my district, my former district, when they had their initiatives, it was like, well, we're going to tell teachers that they should be culturally responsive, but did not provide adult experiences that allowed them to understand what that was. And so a teacher or someone who's a student or in a student stance is honestly asking you the question of, how do I do that? It's because we didn't do the part as the teacher or the facilitator to help them understand or experience it. You can't ask people to do what they've not experienced.
Nope. I
And
I
teachers
teach
get it a lot. So in the past, before I grew up, I would walk out and dare my principal tell me something. Like, I'm not doing this. This is foolishness. I could be writing lesson plans right now. The why wasn't there, and adults need to know why.
I
What's in
teach
it for them?
be culturally responsive because it's part of the 5 pillars of motivation. Uh,
Mm,
Empathy, culturally responsive is one of them. Uh, I can't think of the other 3. I've been out of the loop for about a month now, so I can't think of
mm,
the 3. But culturally responsive is one of them, and inside of that, I have different uh, entities. What I call them, I don't call them by race anymore. It's different entities. That's what I call people
mm,
because we're all different entities. I
yeah.
said, not just go around the room and I ask people. I said, what's something that's from your diverse background that you do in your area? What's something that you notice in your area that you
Mm,
just culturally that you do? And they would tell me. Then I just pick different people in the classroom, and then I would tell them, I said, in southern parts of the world, it's still illegal to do different things. It's still against the law to steal, and when you steal, they cut that hand off. It's part of the law. I said,
yeah.
so in parts of Iraq, Kuwait, it's against the law to do anything with your left hand. And so they can cut that hand off. They still cut your tongue off. They still cut your ear off.
Mm,
If you're not culturally responsive about those laws, you can't say I'm an American because you have to be culturally responsive when you go to different locations. Then
yeah.
I transition that to you have to be culturally responsive when you go to New York to Texas because it's 2 different places. I said, even
Mm,
when you go from uh, Queens to Manhattan. You have to be culturally responsive. When you go from Denver to Colorado City, you have to be culturally responsive about the differences of the areas because it's two
yeah.
different places. So that's how I break that down when I'm talking to the different entities in my classrooms
Yeah.
because I want them all to see that it's not just about where they're from, but it's about understanding about the different people that come from different areas.
And it's not also like I'm actually teaching that class, cultural relevant and responsive practices in pedagogy through teachers for teachers, and to help people understand that identity and culture is not just, well, culture is not just about race. Like you're speaking to culture, are it's the observable behaviors, but it's also the way we interact with one another and based on our belief systems. And so to have people only think about it as black, literally black or white. Like, I'm like, there's more culture to that. Like, there's all these other cultures. And so trying to get people to open their minds as and educators, um, and these educators, they're phenomenal educators. They're based in Hawaii, but they don't have those issues. And so I have to learn and be open to understanding their culture and what they experience in their lived experience in their culture, while also trying to help them see what culture is outside of just being black or white.
It's interesting you say that about those two colors, because I was explaining something to uh, someone, one of my peers, and he said they just want it to be black or white. And, that's the only two colors they focus on. I said, so what do you do with the rest of the crayons in the box? He said, what? I said, so what are you doing with the rest of the crayons in the box? He said, what do you mean? I said, well, they only want it to be black or white. I said, the rest of the room, your spectrum that you have to work in, is the rest of the crayons in the box. I said, because they want it to be black or white. There's other crayons in that box. And I said, last time I checked, they don't really just sell a box of crayons with just black or white. I said, most crayons, they come in all white, all black, or they come in specific colors that you're looking for. I said, so maybe you should operate with what you have and not what they're trying to give you. He said, dang, you just broke that down so quickly. And then you just opened up my eyes to a lot of things. I don't have to use it because they're telling me I have that. I can use everything that I have to my capabilities. Like I was telling you, make it your own.
Right.
Because they're trying to make it black and white. When with this podcast where they say, hey, you have to be this, you have to be that. But those aren't the only crayons in the box.
Right.
I like using all my crayons until they break. And then I want a new box.
Or you just peel the paper off and use that other one.
Yeah.
Use that other piece. It's like I said before on my podcast, a lot of times labels are damning. And I learned that through an experience when I was a leader in a previous job where I was given a name, well intended, but because people didn't understand culture of each other, and was given a name that was kind of like a nickname. And so then was not comfortable with it, but did not speak up about it. And then in doing so with that particular group, my real name became weaponized. So it was okay to call me this nickname as a term of endearment until you got pissed at me, and then you start using my name. And I learned through that experience, names give things a form and a function. And so by naming things in Western culture, we learn how we make an agreement. And that agreement is, how do I deal and interact and engage with this thing? As opposed to letting the thing be comfortable in what the name is and you accepting and embracing that. It wound up, eventually I did share that, like, that's not my name. I prefer to be called by my real name. It brought tension for a while, but we both had to understand one another. And that's all I'm gonna say about that. I'll tell you after recording, but that's all I can say about that. But
I'm gonna sum that up for you. I tell people, I said, you aren't what you're called. You what you answer to. As soon as you answer to it, you give people the power to call you that, and you can't get upset by what you answer to. I said, so I used it as a answer to the N word. I said, so if you don't answer to it, then you don't have to worry about getting mad when they say it, because you don't have to answer to it.
Yeah.
I said, the only thing you have to answer to is your name. If they're not calling you by your name, what are you getting upset about? Is it that they're using it? Who cares if they use it? It's not a term of endearment to you, because you know they're not calling you by that. If you understand the actual definition of it, it means ignorant person. The name only changed to represent the color of us later on in life, because they wanted to start putting names on people. But the definition of the N-word actually means ignorant person, so it can be labeled towards anyone.
I remember back in the day where it was a working machine. That was the definition. And
but let people tell you the dictionary has never changed, but it has. It's changed several times. You just don't realize it.
Yeah.
But if you talk to some of your wisdomologist people and some of your old heads, as you call them, you found out what these words actually mean before they changed.
That's why I don't recommend you just go learn the definition. You go look up the is it etymology or epistemology? One of those, you learn up the origin of the actual word broken apart, because then that'll give you better understanding, because you could go type in something again that you knew what the definition was when you learned it, and either it's been moved farther down to the meaning or the meaning has been replaced. You just see it on Google. I just go do it for yourself. That's why words are getting manipulated and it doesn't mean this and right. It's convoluted. Yep. And words evolve, language evolves. I also like to think that certain words stay within the ballpark of the original, but that's just me.
It's supposed to.
Yes, yeah.
It's supposed to. What is your push to get better after you do an episode? What makes you want to get better for the next episode?
That's an excellent question.
I'll do what I can.
I have a background in music. I was a violinist, classically trained. I also got to play with Stevie Wonder and Smokey Robinson.
Oh yeah.
One Essence Fest, which my friends in college are still like, "How did you get that?" I'm like, "Divine timing. I don't know. They just needed a violinist." So I was a part of the orchestra. This was like in either 2003 and 2004, one of those years, one of them two.
Did Stevie see you?
No, I mean, he kind of waved at everybody when he came on, but he had a blue.
That's my Stevie joke.
A blue. Oh, see, that's cold blooded. I didn't even think. I wasn't even thinking that. Yeah, he had this blue grand piano with like Africa on top, it was like beautiful. Like if you could take it home, like I would love to have a piano like that in my house, because it just looked. I mean, whoever did the artwork, it was amazing.
That's past a grand piano. That's a Stevie piano.
Well, yeah.
In Detroit, they got a big mural of him, this is Motown, of him on one of the walls, and I thought I took a picture of it 2 years ago. It's downtown, and you can't miss it. You drive up, you see that big mural of Stevie up there on the wall. It's a big mural.
Nice. So with that, to answer your question, my goal and commitment is always to be better than the previous one I put out. So when it comes to interviewing, I'm always in that reflective mode of, okay, what could I do differently? What can I do better? What if I tried this? Same thing with editing, trying to be one, better than the next. And over time, knowing that I'm going to get there, but get there never really happens. Because perfect, I had to learn in the lesson that I'm learning, is perfect. Done is better than perfect.
That's true.
Because for some of us who feel a sense of like not being worthy, because that's the core of it, in my opinion, we keep driving ourselves to be perfect, but perfection will never come. All I can do is do better than I did the last time. And I had to make peace with that. I had to literally sit down and have a conversation with myself to say, Christina, we're not driving for perfection, because if I drove for perfection, I would never have put anything out.
But that's your perfection right there. Once you understand that you would never reach perfection, but you will only reach as good as you can get for that episode, which is putting your all into everything you're doing for that moment.
Yeah.
Because perfection drives you crazy because, that's not perfect. It's just that sheer word itself, perfect, drives you crazy, because the Bible tells you perfection is not attained. There was only one perfect person. But yet and still, that's what drives a lot of people. And for me, I don't look to be perfect as much as I just look to put my all into each episode.
Yeah.
And even when I go back to edit or listen to it, I'm like, okay, maybe I can ask this question here. Or when I even do my dialogue for certain shows, I'm like, you know what? I think this question goes better here, because it makes it flow better for this conversation to happen and this conversation to happen. it's almost like I'm looking at the matrix when I'm moving things around. It's like, yeah, let me put this here,
Yeah.
let me put this here, let me put this here. And then when I talk to people like you like, oh man, that's a great conversation. I'm like, man, that question just came out of nowhere because it's not even written
Yeah.
down nowhere. So
And
it's
I've learned to trust the process. And going back to my classical training, classical or training classically, either dance, I like to equate dance with like the level of intensity and perfection. Because as a string player, if my finger was off 3/5 of an inch, I was out of tune. So you had to be hypersensitive and always analyzing in the moment in small pieces and the comprehensive piece at the same time. And so um now the wisdom has taught me that it's not about being perfect, it's about refinement. And how do you refine each time? To your point, which means it's where it needs to be for now, and you can always make it better. But the paralysis of trying to be perfect, I never would have started. I'm just saying, like, I wouldn't even put out a promo or even told people that I would have done it because perfection would have stopped me.
I'm gonna say this: you do a lot of things that I don't do. Your editing, your post is. I'm like, I'll be looking at them that pop up, then you tag me, and I'm like, man, how she do that? Like, you know what? I'm just gonna stay in my lane. You know, I'm just gonna post like I post. I'm good. I'm gonna stay in my lane. That's her thing. I'm gonna stay in my lane. You may
Well, I
it's
mean,
nothing, but when you do it, it's so crisp. You got everything. It's at as little time as you've been doing it. It's like you've been doing it for years. So
thank
you're on
you.
the right track. Yeah, because
I
I'll be looking at
so
those. I'm like, man, that's amazing right there. How does she do that? I don't
so
care. Shoot. No, I just keep
honestly,
going.
I mean, because to and I don't want people to take this the wrong way, but you know how it is when you start a business. And I'm not saying this is a business because for me, like you said for yourself, it's a work of art. And a work of art takes time and it takes diligence and it takes discipline. When I got started, I didn't have any money. And I was like, and you also dropped the nugget of try to see what you can do for free before you start paying for things, because before you know it, you paying for all these subscriptions and
That
um
you don't need.
that you don't need. And so it actually forced me to think about, just you telling me that forced me to think about, do I really need this or do I need to develop a skill set? And at the time, I think I hired a person to edit and I just needed to see what it looked like. And then I knew I could do that if I just saw. So I hired someone to do it. And but I also the person didn't edit it correctly in my editing notes. And so before I pushed it out, it was the very first episode with Ira Curry. And he had edited it to the point where it was two audio tracks over one visual track. So it sounded like two different conversations happening. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't let this go out. I got to hurry up and do this. So a Saturday afternoon, I was in iMovie trying to figure out how to cut and make this work. And after that, it was like, well, what do I need to pay you for? I can figure it out. And if I can, I'll ask and pay you for what I need you for. But that's pretty much how I got started. And then ever since then, it was like, well, also too, I used to sing, so I did studio work. So I kind of understood the editing process there, which kind of helped. I don't think I'm good at it at all. I can see myself getting better, but by no means am I going to say like I'm hanging with like the best of them. I'm just doing what works. Like you said, I'm just doing what works for now.
But so here's
Um,
the thing: you're not supposed to say that. People are supposed to say that about you, and you're supposed to listen to it.
mm,
Michael
yeah.
Jordan never said he was the GOAT. People call him that.
Mm,
So when people speak praise over you, then you see the work that you're doing.
uh,
That's how that works.
yeah.
Because as artists, we never think our stuff is good until people start telling us, "Hey, man, that what you did right there, that was amazing." And you're like, I'll just do what I can. That's why I get
Yeah.
that I do what I can from, because as an artist, so for someone else to hear I do what I can as an artist as yourself, then I do what I can means, it's that's everything.
Yeah.
Because we do exactly as I say, I do what I can because we're putting our all into it. That's
Yeah.
literally where my statement comes from when I say I do what I can. But to other people that hear that, like, no, you doing more than you can. You doing this and you doing that. But to us, it's just like, it's just, I just did what I can. I just threw something together.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
to other people, it's not like we didn't throw nothing together. You're like, nah, you did this, you did that. But to us, it's like, we just do something together. I just
Yeah.
made this call. I just did this call. I did this and I did that. And there it is right there. It came out like that.
And I think, thank you for sharing that, because I never thought about it that way. Honestly, I don't. Like, someone had asked me before, like, you don't put, like, you don't put up comments. And I was like, no. I said, because I give you my email, and if you have something to say, you can send it to me directly, like face to face.
So let me tell you about that. Now,
Uh-huh.
I recently found out that if you comment on people that say things on your page, it drives traffic through your page and it makes your page more popular if you comment on the comments. So I was on someone else's page and they said if you comment on the comments, even if you say hi, you continue the dialogue, it drives more traffic to your page. The algorithm goes up because those algorithms for Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, or whatever you're using sees that there's traffic going to your page. So that's why I started commenting on whoever comments on my page. If it's negative, whatever it says, I'm trying to drive that traffic to that page. So at least say something. Yeah, I at least like it, or at least go put my three emojis, my heart, lock it up, and then pray. I at least put my three emojis. I at least put something to drive that traffic to keep them commenting.
Okay. That's the next thing I have to work on. And unfortunately, I get people who are trying to sell me their services in Facebook. There are a couple of people that I've reached out to, but I get people who are, when people trying to sell you something, but they just don't come up front with it. I just like you to be up front. Like, you want to be my friend and then you want to try to sell me something about SEO optimization. And I'm just like,
So this whole podcast has been I wanted you to buy my hand sanitizer I just came out with.
Wait.
That's how they do. That's how, so, I just had you on this whole podcast trying to get you to buy this hand sanitizer I just came out with right here. They just come out and say it.
I understand. Like I said, kings and queens don't hustle. What's mine to have is mine to get. There's a difference between hustling and putting forth effort. Because effort is more focused and channeled towards and aligned to your goals, in my opinion, as far as hustling. Like, there was this man not too long ago. Okay, so every time I go to Walmart, I have this innate ability to attract people that's going to give me their whole life story. When I'm just grabbing a can of beans or looking at chicken. So this man, I was buying vinegar. That was the aisle I was in. Like, dude come up. He's selling little roll-on perfumes. Y'all know what So he starts off like, "Hey, queen." I'm like, "Oh, here we go."
There you go with
But
that.
he's talking, and he's, trying to drop all these names of like designers I should know. And I'm like, I don't chase after those people. I don't really care. My mama told me the only name you pay for is your own. You don't pay for nobody else's name.
Say that again. That's why I stopped wearing designer clothes. I started wearing
The
my own.
name that you pay for is yours. You won't put my funny, my grandmother was a seamstress, and she always put her name. She had tags made where she would put her name in the clothes, in her own clothes. So my mom she never really bought us any name brand anything, because she was also like, that's what keeps you broke, paying for somebody else's name. You can't see the value in yours. So
making them famous.
As he's talking to me and everything, and he's showing me he has this beautiful website he created, and he wants to be legit with the business. And I said, bro, so you have this website, you got this plan, but you're selling your cologne in Walmart aisles, like you walking up to people. And I was like, kings don't hustle. And he looked at me like he never heard it before, but also the fact that like, nah, I gotta make it do what it do. I say, but you took the time to create a website that was beautiful. And you sitting here with a fanny pack selling people roll-on cologne when nobody asked you to be selling you this stuff. I was like, why? Either you're gonna go this route or you're gonna keep hustling. I said, but you gotta make that choice. I said, but kings don't hustle. I said, queens don't hustle either. I'm not hustling.
But see, when they
I
walk
say,
up to me, I tell them, I say, hey, come on the podcast and, give me my 5%, 10%
no,
when you make it
I,
big.
I did invite him on my podcast. I invited him on the podcast and I've not heard from him. But I did invite him in the beginning because he had told me things about his life. And it was like, well, that would be interesting for you to share your story and you can get. I don't pay people to come on and I'm not paying for people to come on. But I will allow you to promote yourself because I feel like that is fair. And I want you to be in a positive light and people know what you
Yeah.
do. I've not
And
heard
that's
from him. So I guess he's still out
exactly
there
it.
pushing them roll ons. I don't know.
That's what I say. Hey, we all can win.
Right.
We all can win. You come on my show, promote your stuff. I come on your show, promote my stuff. We stay in contact after. We don't stay in contact. It
Right.
wasn't about us. It wasn't about us.
Yeah.
Yep. Um, I came up with this quote the other day. It's actually two of them. It said, you can't become a tree without roots. You can still be a tree with no leaves, but not
Mm.
without roots.
Mm.
Uh, and then I came up with another one. For some reason, I was stuck on trees. It said, being a tree is understanding. You need the elements to exist. Be great at it.
Mm.
So I was stuck on a tree for some reason. But I finished it with be great at all times. Um, for all of you that are listening, you need to understand that it's not always about you as much as it is about the people that are around you. Because when your circle stops moving, you may need to move some people out.
Mm.
Sometimes those people are your family, and it's okay. It's okay. And sometimes your circle stops moving because it's you. And if your circle needs to get smaller, then make it smaller. You can always come back around and pick those people up.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to do those evaluations. And self evaluation is the hardest to do. It's easy to point your finger at everybody else. But when you're using that pen to point at everybody else, remember there's the other side of that pen that's pointing back at you. Do your self evaluation to become better for you because self care is the affirmation.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate you all coming to unlearn things that you needed to relearn because sometimes, hell, you don't know what you need to learn. But I'm going to let Miss Jones promote whatever you need to promote and let the people know where they can find you, where to look for you next.
This is always a challenge for me because again, I'm like the person that I also feel like a lot of times people that talk about it don't be about it. I like to be about what I do. So, but you can find the Unlearning podcast and it's spelled with a backwards. So UN3, the A in the circle. Was that an ampersand? That's not an ampersand. The
at sign.
The at sign. R in capital ING podcast. It's on all platforms. So Spotify, Apple, Google, whichever's your favorite. You can also find us on YouTube, the Unlearning Podcast Multimedia. There you can find me on Facebook, the Unlearning Podcast under Christina Jones. You can find me on Instagram, Unlearn This 2022. I do have a TikTok, but I don't remember what that is. It's Christina Jones and some numbers, but I will make sure that you have that to promote. You can catch me every Monday. I do Moody Monday quotes, something to inspire you to get back to work. Trying to drop knowledge. I understand as a former leader that everybody does not like their job. So if you don't, those quotes are for you to keep you going. I also have Happy Friday messages that I share with people just on my perspective and experience. You can check all that out on all the platforms. You can also email me unlearnthis@gmail.com.
Before I go, I forgot to ask you, how are you doing mentally? I started show off like that. I forgot to ask you, how are you doing mentally?
Oh, um, hmm, better than I was. But it's healing, and especially grief. Healing is like an onion. And I used to say for a long time, when you don't take care of things like you need to, it seeps. And so I pulled back a lot of layers, and I'm not where I used to be, so I see the difference. But every now and again, things start to seep up, and I have to be present to deal with those things. So that happened last weekend, past. So went through it, and today I feel better.
So do you cry before you start cutting the onion or when you cut the onion? Or after you get done?
All of it. Because if you block things out and you don't cry at all, and you say onions aren't supposed to make you cry, then you have to go through the process that you never went through. That's why the interesting story around grief and grief in the body and how I've learned about that, because I went to different healers to try to help me get whatever it is. I couldn't name it. And when they all sit down and say, what happened? Are you okay? And they're crying because of my grief. And I'm sitting there like, I'm doing great. What are you talking about?
You don't see it.
Um, I don't see it because I didn't want to see it. I wasn't ready to, but now I am ready. So, um, mentally today, I'm in a good place.
So why do we not cry when we eat onion rings?
Well,
Good
I love
question.
onion rings. I love a good onion ring. And onion rings are coated, depending on the breading, can be coated with a hint of sweetness. If you go to Sonic and you eat those onion rings, they got a little sweetness in it. So you don't mind that onion taste on the back end because it's so sweet. And then sometimes you're like, hey, wait, onion rings aren't supposed to be sweet.
This is true.
What is that?
This is
But
true.
if anybody don't know, Sonic adds powdered sugar to their onion rings to make them sweet because they know people don't like the onion taste.
Watch the food that built America. It tells you a lot about a lot of different foods.
Ooh. Mm.
If you don't want to watch it with the commercials, watch it on Hulu or watch it on the new Max. It's not HBO anymore. Watch it on the new Max.
Okay.
That is the season 2. This is the finale for season 2, people. I have
Mm.
successfully made it through a
Yeah.
second. I will be taking effectively, it's my plan, about a month and a half off before season 3 comes out. Next season, and I'm telling you all now, there's going to be a lot of history episodes because I think it's things that people need to know. Uh, and I can tell you that it's going to be episodes like the shortest war, uh,
Mm.
like the bombings that happened in Philadelphia that killed like the 16 families. It's going to be an extension of Black Wall Street. I want to know more about the 6 families that was the richest before the Tulsa massacres happened. So I'm digging deep into a lot of things with this next season. It's a lot of history episodes. 16th Street Baptist Church in Alabama. It's a lot of anniversary shows coming up with this new season. I also made time to do a few interviews. Uh, as I started this episode, I told you I'm going to start doing grief. It's going to be the first episode 56, called Grief is a Process. Uh,
Mm.
and I'm going to go ahead and put this in the wind right now and let you all know that you may be unlearning something in Grief is a Process, because we need to go more into this story about how Miss Christina got out of her process. And I think it'll be a great thing to start season 3. We're bringing her back to start season 3. So um, that's because we pretty much went into it. So let's continue the story with that. And then you all know season 3, I got cupidity. I'm talking more about the relationship aspect. I don't do males, I don't do females, I do male and female. So I always have a male and a female talking about that because there's too much of a bitter person and a bitter person giving all the wrong information. On my podcast, I give all the information to both of you. Uh, That's been season 2, and it's been a ride. And with season 3, you want to know what now? I'm going to tell you what now. We just getting started, because I already told you season 5 is already in the books with what I want to do. Season 6 is in the books. Season 7 is in the books. Season 8 is in the books. It's kind of like LeBron when he said 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm at 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking at this thing like when I pass on from this world, I'm giving it to my niece, nephew, and somebody else going. I'm like Johnny Carson up in here. I'm like the Tonight Show. They still gonna be talking about this. They still gonna be talking about the Unlearning podcast. And everybody I talk to that's in my circle from this season, we're all going to be advancing to another level. Not next year, not in 2 years, but the blessing is coming when it's time for it to come. The blessing is coming when it's time for it to come. And even if you're not on my boat, I still got room for you to get on my boat. I ain't like that. I still got room for you to get on my boat. Why? Because Jesus continues to forgive me. And with that being said, I appreciate you joining me, Miss Christina,
Thank you,
for
Mr.
for What Now, because we both explained what now with both of our episodes. I wish you great fruition with everything you got going. If you ever need someone to do some public speaking, pro bono, of course, or some mentoring with the thing you got going on in Denver with those hard headed teachers, you have my information. Let me
That's
know. I'll
you
be
should come on. Yeah, you should come on and do a part of the series. There were so many people that reached out for miseducation that we wound up having to extend it. So it may be the whole school year. It was like
Hey, that's
120
fine.
people signed
I'm
up.
available. Just let me know when. I'll be like, all right, I'll be there. I may
Okay.
even fly out to Denver because I have a cousin that lives out there, and I have a few friends that live out there. So I may be in the area. Just
Okay.
we will keep each other posted.
Yeah.
For all the rest of you, like, share, comment, and not just like, share, and comment, but make sure you leave us a 5-star rating, just like you do your Uber drivers. Because those 5-star ratings mean so much to us. It lets us know that you're listening, you like what we're doing. Please leave messages at our email address, the voice messages. Leave us messages, let us know what you liked about the show, how we can continue to help you and impact you. And if you don't like it, don't leave a message. Don't leave a message. Don't be rude. Other than that, appreciate you all. We will both see you when we see you. When is that? Hell, I don't know.